Welcome back to Just Talking. We have a great show for you today. Why? Because we have a great special guest here, and that is Sam Kuffel, a meteorologist at CBS-58 Milwaukee. Sam, nice to see you there.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, let's hear it. How did you get started to take a career as a meteorologist?
Honestly, it was something that I just always wanted to do. When I grew up, I was kind of afraid of thunderstorms, but my mom would take me to the library and I just started checking out the VHS tapes of tornadoes and would really love that. So yeah, ever since I was, I believe, second grade, I decided I wanted to be a meteorologist and kind of just took it off from there. I didn't really ever want to do anything else. So it was, success or failure with it.
So, what's so fascinating about weather?
Honestly, I was just so fascinated after I got over the fear of thunderstorms, just always watching them. I grew up in Kenosha, and growing up in the 90s and 2000s, it seemed like we got a lot of storms either late in the day where you could see them coming in or waking you up in the middle of the night. So I would get woken up in the night a lot. And once I was done being afraid of it, I would just sit there and stare and was just fascinated with the lightning. But yeah, so that's kind of where it all started and kind of took off.
And then did you go in your college studies to learn more about in depth about meteorology?
Yeah, I had initially went to St. Cloud State for a year in Minnesota. A little bit too far from home, a little bit too small, surprisingly. So I ended up transferring to UW Milwaukee, and that's where I ended up getting my undergraduate degree.
So let's maybe start at the basics. What is meteorology?
Well, meteorology, some people say, oh, you know things about meteors. No, we don't learn anything. It's the study of hydrometeors, which are water particles. So either in cloud form, with a humid day like today where you're just feeling it in the air, or raindrops. So it's really the study of what water does in our atmosphere.
Well, you're very knowledgeable on the weather and meteorology. So, but you're also in front of the cameras when you go to the weather forecast. Were you nervous when you first went on camera to report the weather?
Oh yeah, I've always been stage fright ever since I was very little. Christmas programs growing up wouldn't even make it down the aisle, or if I did, I was just standing there crying, just completely stage fright. And going into TV was never in the plan. Always wanted to be more National Weather Service or private sector behind the scenes, just, actually doing the forecasting. But there was an opportunity for an internship for one night a week when I was in college just to learn how to use the green screen. And I really wanted to take every opportunity I could to get my foot in the door in the career field however I could, and I ended up really enjoying it and got a Monday through Friday job in Wisconsin doing weather. So I had to pounce on that opportunity.
And where was your first job doing the weather in front of the camera?
It was actually at WAOW in Wausau.
Okay.
So I was there for about 2.5 years, but I got the 11 a.m. show. It was right out of college. So I had to jump on the opportunity. And to be that close to home when, going through college, you're being told as a meteorologist, if you want to do it, you got to be prepared to move anywhere because there aren't a ton of jobs. So you just got to take them where they come. And I got pretty lucky, I will say.
Okay, when people watch the weather, they may want to see whether it's rainy or sunny, but you give a very informative forecast. Let's start about the structure of it. What do you start off from when they cut to you?
Well, a lot of times, we're given certain times for each hit. So at the start of a show, it's a quick 30-second hit in the mornings. And then you sometimes have 3 full minutes to give your whole spiel, your whole forecast, hit all the nuts and bullets. But a lot of times I'll like to start with current. If something's happening, people are tuning in to see what's happening. So I'll start with some current conditions. Like today, it was raining. Talking rain totals as the morning goes on, trying to update them and give the current radar, especially in the morning for a morning commute. That's what people care about. And then what's happening next? So like, okay, well, it was going to get humid this afternoon. So I kind of built it in that way and then gave more of a forecast of it's not going to stay, by tomorrow it's going away. And then everyone loves to see the future forecast map. So got to include that. I normally try to put that near the end to kind of build it up. You've already said it a couple times, so you've heard it and you've hopefully started to digest it. But then you see the actual map itself doing the future radar, and hopefully I just hope it sticks in people's brains, and then they can't say that they got caught off guard. And I also kind of like to try to educate just a little bit of why thrown in there. So yeah, kind of like today was saying, okay, well, it's going to get humid this afternoon. We'll have a break from the rain, but any sunshine that pops out, we'll probably see some showers pop. And that's just a little bit of why.
Well, let's also talk about like the satellite and radar. What is that? Where is it coming from? Does CBS-58 put a satellite in the air and you tap into it? Or let's see here about what is the satellite and radar?
So we generally use the radar that's located at the National Weather Service in Sullivan. So that's about an hour west of Milwaukee. They actually put the radar there so they are able to get a better scan of both Madison and Milwaukee. So technically, they call themselves the National Weather Service in Milwaukee, but they aren't located there because of where the radar is located. There's also a radar located at Mitchell International Airport, and we do sometimes tap into that one when we're doing severe weather and need a close-up scan of a storm. It's a little bit closer when it's in Waukesha, or like when the storm's in Waukesha and getting closer. So those are the primary radars that we use. When we show more of a bigger, broad map, it's more of a composite radar instead of just the close one sweeping arm. So it takes radars from La Crosse, Green Bay, depending how far we zoom out, to build the larger radar loop itself. For satellites, we do use the GOES 16 satellite that was launched about 5 years ago now. So really wonderful satellite that we use. In our graphics system, though, it kind of doesn't get processed as clearly as it does on a web browser, which is a little unfortunate, but gotta take what's given,
Well, what is Doppler? You see the Doppler effect. What is the Doppler?
Yeah, basically how a Doppler radar works is it sends out a radar beam. So think of it, as an invisible laser, and it scans at different levels through a 5-minute process. So it'll scan out at the lowest level. That's normally where it's mainly scanning, or where we have it set at, and it will do a full loop. And if it hits any rain particles or anything like that, sometimes birds show up on radar, bugs show up on radar, and then it sends a signal back to the radar telling it where it is and how big it is. So a lot of times you see reds on radar. Those are really big raindrops. Where we have, just light green, it's more of a light rain, smaller raindrops associated with that.
How long does it take to prepare the weather forecast? It sounds like your eyes are out everywhere trying to map it out. And how long does it take, or is it on the spot?
Well, I normally like to give myself at least a full hour of just pure forecasting, going through the data to try to make the best sort of forecast. And the more data you can ingest, the more logical, or like you can notice more patterns too, the longer that you're forecasting. But then I spend a decent 40 minutes building graphics, whether it's looking up stats like the temperature and radar data and satellite data, that all comes in automatically. But adjusting forecast numbers, like on the 7-day forecast, maybe our future track that shows the future rainfall, future radar isn't what I think it's going to be. So I have to try to tweak it to tell what I actually think is going to happen. So there is a lot more that goes into it. I wish I could just wake up and know the forecast, but I would say put a couple of hours into preparing before going on air.
When you talked about the graphics are excellent on your forecast. Do you create them? Do you have a team of that? How do the graphics come into your report?
Yeah, we all do graphics work. A lot of times, my typical schedule during the week, since I am the weekend meteorologist, if I'm not filling in during the weekdays, I build a lot of the graphics behind the scenes, and do a lot of the stat work. I'm a pretty big stat nerd, and thankfully my station allows me to kind of throw some of those stats in there, look up some little obscure random stat, like nights above 60 degrees this summer. And, just another little nugget to throw in there when the weather's quiet and you still got to fill that 3 minutes of time. But yes, we do a lot of graphics, and we did a good overhaul too with our graphics department, working on a sharper look.
You talked about going preparing before you go on camera, you do the report. What happens after you step off camera? Like if there is severe weather out there, do you say, okay, we're going to track it, or do you just leave your shift to it?
Oh no. If I left my shift when there was severe weather, that's how you get fired as a meteorologist. You know, you can get the forecast wrong a couple times and you're not going to lose your job, of course. That's the big saying. But like, yeah, you can't leave during a warning.
Well, weather can change on the dime too, and it's like again, would you call it weather predictions or weather forecasts? I don't know the terminology on it.
They're used interchangeably in the community, so like that does work.
I mean, you are very accurate. I have not seen anything where it's like it didn't. And we're talking about rain 6 months from now. If I'd be talking to you, we'd be talking about winter, and that's a whole different thing. And
yes.
What's kind of nice is that you're actually a lifesaver. At least your job is, because if people don't know of a big 18-foot snowstorm coming, or blizzard, or dangerous driving conditions in the rain, that's where you guys come in.
And we've learned too that people like need to see it visually. Like you can tell them, beat them over the head, like, oh, the roads are really bad, but you can show them a picture of a crash or like a video of like, hey, these are what you can expect to see. I think that helps, drive home the point and help protect people a bit more, saying, oh, okay, maybe I should wait 20 minutes to drive. Like when we had a snow squall come through, it was like, okay, you don't want to be on the roads for this, but in a half hour, you'll be fine.
We're talking about weather models or patterns. Like, do you track of like years earlier, saying, okay, we've had a mild winter?
Oh yeah, I do that a lot, especially during the week, and especially the last 5 years. Went from the wettest years on record for Milwaukee, Racine, Kenosha in 18 and 19. Off the top of my head, might have been 17, 18. But then going straight into a drought right after that. So it's been pretty interesting to see going from one extreme to another. This year's been a little bit better, but last year you guys missed almost all the rain until later on in the year. And then we've had pretty easy winters the last few years. So another thing we'll do, especially with winter forecasting, El Nino and La Nina play a pretty big role into that. And for the records for that only go back, I believe, 50 or 60 years, keeping track of those. But apparently we're going into a La Nina for a third winter in a row, and that's never been observed in the last 50 years. So we'll see if it actually brings us a lot of snow this year, or if we stay mild again. It'll be interesting to see how it pans out. But we do track that stuff.
Oh yeah, I remember that one year we had, I think it was Groundhog's Day, is that 18 foot of snow. I mean, walk outside, and then I think another weird weather thing when we had that wind gust and uprooted a lot of trees down by the lake, and it was just, you don't know, so ever so often something's going to happen like that.
I remember both of those. So I grew up only a quarter mile from the lake in Kenosha, so we got dumped on with 20 inches of snow. That was in my senior year of high school. And then, that supercell, because it never really came on shore, it just tracked right down the lake shore and kind of just skirted along it. I remember we couldn't use Sheridan Road for weeks. It seemed like going down into Illinois too. They got hammered down into Waukegan.
Speaking of Groundhog's Day, what did you think of the movie Groundhog's Day?
I've seen the movie. I do like the movie. The holiday itself.
Yeah, right.
Is like, you watch any meteorologist on TV nowadays, and we're a little salty about it. But but hey, it's an excuse to make a graphic and be like, all right, here's his predictions and here's how he did. So just have some fun with it.
What about weather instruments? Okay, we talked about satellite. Even as viewers, should we have any type of weather instruments in or outside our house, or do you use anything like that?
I just think it's fun to have a rain gauge. A lot of people, my family, I have a lot of family in Kenosha and family in Sheboygan. I've given them rain gauges, so I can just, ask them like, hey, like how much rain did you get, or how much snow did you get? But a lot of people wonder that, especially on a night like last night. It poured all night, kind of tamed down in the morning. People are like, oh, I wonder how much rain fell. You can just go out in the backyard then and look, even on your way to work, and be like, oh, I got 1.5 inches of rain. How cool. Good to know. I don't need to water, instead of relying on We mainly rely on ASOS stations, which are the official recorder. So one is at the Kenosha airport. That's the official Kenosha one. So say if you're up by Carthage, you may have gotten 3 inches of rain, but the airport, which is, farther southwest, only got maybe a 1/4 inch of rain. So I just think it would be cool for everyone just to have the rain gauge because it's just something interesting. And I think I recommend that for kids too, because that's just a way for them to get interested in science and just something everybody experiences in the rain, and then they can learn the measurements too.
It sounds also with the forecast and living in Wisconsin. Is there advantage of reporting weather because we've got all those different seasons and different weather changes? Has it been a good experience for you when you report the weather that's not the same every day?
Oh yeah, I don't think I'd be able to live in a place that wasn't 4 seasons. But after experiencing a winter in Wausau, winters up there are like a whole nother level. Like we do have it pretty easy down here for both snow and temperatures. We get the lake effect snow bands that dump a lot every once in a while, but whew, it's a long and harsh winter up there. But even growing up near the lake, I think that even helps me in my day-to-day job since I'm lived here for almost 30 years. So I've lived the weather, even though I wasn't forecasting it the entire time. But I know how the lake influences play out even in like the very small locations, like Wind Point, for example.
Yeah. If those haven't gone to a Brewers game and look at the Jumbotron, I believe CBS-58 is the official forecast of the Milwaukee Brewers.
Yes.
And no, what happens there? Don't they like throw you and some of the team members on the screen and give a little forecast? Or
Yeah, every home game, there's 2 different forecasts that we record about like 2 hours ahead of time and send it to the Brewers. So they're not live, but they one airs before the game, and then one airs in between the bottom or the end of the 7th inning going into the 8th inning. So yeah, we do that for every home game. We have that schedule posted up in our office right next to our actual work schedules. So my chief Drew Burgoyne, he schedules out the game so everyone pretty much has a fair number of appearances, we'll say, throughout the season.
that is terrific. That is absolutely terrific.
That was a bucket list thing. So
I mean, you must have a blast. Bring somebody to the game and say, "Hey, watch this."
yep, the first time we saw it was last year because I started in December of 2019. So the 2020, the pandemic ruined any fans, so we weren't doing scoreboard forecasts. So last April was the first time, and my dad and I went to a game. And that's when the seats were still zip tied to keep the distancing, and our seats were zip tied. So we had an usher, asked him like, "Hey, can you, find some scissors or something? These are our seats." And then we didn't know what time it would come on. It went on the screen. We're in masks, and we're like, "Oh my gosh, like that's me!" And the guy was like, "Okay, sure it is." Right? So it was just like a funny experience like that, and I love it.
Wow, absolutely terrific. Well, since you're great at predicting the weather, can you predict the Brewers win the World Series?
I don't think this year. If you would have asked me, in May, I may have said, we have a chance, but that Hader trade doesn't make a lot of sense for when it happened, and it does seem like it zapped a lot of the good energy that the team had. So I don't know if it's going to happen this year unless they get hot at the right time and consistently hit.
I believe you are a sports fan. It said in the profile. What about the Packers? Do you think they're going to make it?
I think they're going to do pretty well. It seemed like their young wide receivers are having a good showing so far at camp. I haven't watched a lot of the preseason, but even what I've just seen on social media, Jordan Love looks a lot better. And our defense, I think, is going to be the bigger story. That's what's got me more excited because defense wins championships, and we had a really good one in 2010, and look how that turned out. So there's hope.
Absolutely. But I do want to, you are one of a team, and let's talk about that team. You guys got a great weather team. How do you guys work together?
We all work together great, honestly. Really blessed with the team that we have. The afternoon shifts are the only ones that really cross each other. So otherwise you're forecasting on your own. At the end of your shift, you send an email to the rest of the meteorologists saying, hey, this is what I changed. This is why I changed it. Keep an eye out for this. If this keeps showing up on more model runs, we might have to do something, change something. So there's a lot of collaboration that goes on and is handed off.
Great. Well, I want to prove to people that you are from Kenosha, so I got only one question. The Spot or Big Star?
Oh, I knew that was going to be the question too. I'm a North Sider, so Big Star for sure.
The Big Star. Okay, sounds good. Great. Okay, well, Sam, I want to just thank you so much for talking with us. So if people want to watch your forecasts on CBS 58 days and times, or let's hear what we can see.
Consistently on the weekends, both Saturday and Sunday, at 5 p.m. on Saturdays, 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock. Those are both an hour in the evening. The 9 o'clock show is on WMLW-DM, so that's another station. I believe that's 49 on Spectrum or Channel 7. And then on the weekend, on Sunday, it's the same, but the show is at 5:30 instead of 5. So when you're watching those Sunday night football games on CBS that go late, just keep it on.
Okay, that sounds good. All right, well, Sam Kuffel from CBS 58, thank you so much for talking with us today, and you have a great rest of the day.
Thank you for having me. You too.